Hello and welcome to the next video here. Building on the same concepts from the previous video where we're doing debug on the ASA, the plan here is to run debug on the CSR and make the same changes on the ASA to break aspects of config, and then we'll see what the debug looks like on the CSR. The way I'm going to break that down is the phase one policy, pre-shared key, phase two transform set, and then the ACL or the encryption domain. So breaking an aspect of each one of those one at a time. And for each one of those, there is, so we'll look at on the CSR, we'll go debug, crypto, IKEv2, and then I'm going to focus on the different options here: error, internal, and packet. I want to take those one at a time. So to start off, I'm going to go back to the ASA, and similar to what was done in the other video, we want to change the Diffie-Hellman group here, so that way we won't be able to negotiate with the CSR and then effectively break in the phase one negotiation here. So I'm going to change that to Diffie-Hellman group 14, which is definitely not going to work for negotiation. And I'm going to get to the CSR, start debug running. So we're doing the IKEv2 error version here. And then I'm going to get some traffic going. Okay, so we got some debug messages, and for this one, it's pretty simple. Not a super verbose set of messages. Just right off the bat, no proposal, chosen, notify, initial exchange, and that's what I got from my notes here as well. So initial exchange failed, as you can see. So that's helpful. Definitely very clear that we got a problem with proposals. Doesn't really necessarily point out phase one or phase two, but not bad. And so next we'll go to the IKEv2 internal. Get some additional traffic going. Okay, so got some messages here. So I'm gonna go no debug all, so I can stop the messages. And then based on my notes here, what pops out is the fail to verify the proposed policies. So I'll scroll up here. So this is obviously much more verbose and have all these different, we're in these init events, and it's kind of just stepping through. But basically, if you go through here, you'll almost see no messages about authentication, which, pretty much, so within the first few messages, again, it's very, very quick. Failed to verify the proposed policies. And the fact that there's nothing about, and so, we really don't know for sure if that's related to phase one or phase two. But I'd like to point out the fact that since you don't see anything about authentication at all in here, then it's likely that it's, phase one, and we obviously know that from controlling what's broken in the negotiation here, which is the phase one policy. So, you know, no proposal chosen. Failed to verify proposed policies, and that's pretty much it. And that's what I pulled out in the notes essentially. So that all looks correct, and yeah, so we'll move on to the packet version. And this is the one that's going to show, it does get into showing kind of source and destination as far as the encryption domain goes in general. We won't really get to that too much on this one, I don't think, but. All right, so since I had traffic going pretty much right away, I've got messages coming up. When I looked to the notes, this one was pretty simple as well. So basically, I'm going to get the same kind of message here, no proposal chosen. And again, not entirely clear as to which, if that's phase one or phase two per se. And so when I look at the notes here, I pulled out the IKEv2 init, no proposal chosen. And so that's the one right here that's in the middle of the screen highlighted. And then it's interesting, I was scrolling through here and looking through this. So something to point out, you do see, so under this IKEv2 init, protocol is IKE, AES-GCM, SHA-256, group 21, and it's showing the other configured policy, which is the CBC, which isn't going to match on the ASA, and the other GCM. So it's kind of showing the different proposals that we have on the router here, and nothing's matching. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the phase one. Probably the best one out of this group, I would say, is the IKEv2 internal. That seems the most helpful if you take into consideration that it fails almost right away. You don't see anything about authentication, so you never got past the phase one. And then for just a super quick and easy kind of message with the IKEv2 error, then it's telling you, exchange failed, no proposal. you wouldn't really know for sure if that's phase 1 or phase 2, but it's a good indication for sure. All right, so I'm going to jump into the debug for the PSK. So back on the ASA, as we did in the previous video, the tunnel group is where we've got the PSK for this particular VPN config. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a wrong value for the remote line there. And then start off with the debug for the error version. Now we should expect to see messages related to authentication. Which we do. So auth exchange failed. I'm going to send some more traffic just to see that pop up one more time. Okay, so that's pretty much what I'm expecting there. Same thing as in my notes, auth exchange failed. So pretty obvious, clear cut that authentication failed. We got PSK for this one, so and so just to make sure the messages come through clear and we don't have too many issues, just gonna clear everything since I've had issues filming this in the past. So we don't have any security associations, so I really shouldn't need to do this, but okay, so we're totally clear here. We'll go to the internal version of debug now. It's interesting that that popped up since there's no traffic going, but send some traffic. Okay, so now it's showing up the way that I expect. So I can see the, looking for the auth messages. And then that's right here, same as in the notes. So there's a, it's kind of hard to follow the progression on this one. But up top, up a little bit further up, we're getting get IKE policy, set policy, and there's no, don't appear to be insert SA. So there's no errors along those lines. But then as we get through a little bit further down, then we get into the receive auth, and then auth done, EV fail, EV abort. So I think going through this, that's kind of the best indication about, in this particular, in the internal debug aspect, the auth done, fail, and EV abort. I think those are the best messages in here to kind of show that the authentication didn't work here. Okay, and then I'm going to move on to the packet version of debug here. And start sending some more traffic. Okay, so we got messages. And on this one, the notes kind of indicate there's, you know, you can look out for the IKEv2 exchange type, and then there's a pretty clear authentication failed message. And that's right here. So version 2 exchange IKEv2 initiator, and then authentication failed. So that one's not bad. Probably the packet and the error versions here are the most useful as far as a messages for authentication go. All right, so now I'm gonna go and fix the pre-shared key issue that we made here, so that we can now move over to breaking the phase 2 transform set. And run debug along those lines. And then, so just quick refresher here from the previous video. I'm going to change this GCM256 policy to reference a different encryption type. And that is what this GCM256 transform set or IPsec proposal, that's what's explicitly defined on the crypto map. So that's the only encryption type for this tunnel. And so when I break that IPsec proposal, then the tunnel is not going to build. And then at this point, obviously phase 1 policy has no issues. We just fixed the pre-shared key. So then we're going to be failing from a tunnel negotiation and a debug perspective for the phase 2 policy or transform set. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the CSR, start running debug, and then back again to the IKEv2 error version. And I'll start sending some traffic here. Starting to get the beginning of a message, looks like. Okay. So pretty much what I was expecting, you know, failed to find a matching policy, and it'll just continue on with that. So again, like pretty much exactly the same as the example for phase one that we're doing. So didn't match on a policy, not entirely clear which one that is. So it's helpful to a degree, but not completely. So we'll move on to the IKEv2 internal version. And then I've got traffic running from both sides here. Now I've got a bunch of messages. And so from the notes here, looking for verify auth, no proposal chosen type of a message. Okay. Okay. So basically, get policy by peer, set policy, verify policy. Don't see any errors along those. Verify auth. We don't see anything about authentication failing, so we know that we're getting into phase two, and then we fail here. EV no event, no proposal chosen, and then had a lot of traffic going back and forth, so a lot of additional messages, and it's just going to cycle through that um, same concept over and over. I'm just looking through the messages here. Yep, same thing. Same exact series of events as I scroll up. So yeah, that's pretty much way more verbose. Not the easiest to pull out what's going on, but definitely clear that the way that I would look at it is like we definitely saw pre-shared key messages and there was no errors there. Definitely saw the phase one policy come through first, no errors there. So good indication you're getting into phase two. And then when you see after those two events seemingly that are fine, you see no proposal chosen, then it's really indicative of a phase two policy specifically. So. So I'm going to clear everything here just so things show up the way that I expect. Like I said in the previous video, trying to control debug is and get what you want from the messages is not always the easiest thing. So. Okay, so I got both peers cleared out. We're not sending any traffic. Then we'll move on to the packet version of this. So we got debug running again, packet version, send some traffic, you got messages. And then for this one, actually what we'll find is both. So now we're in phase 2 aspect. We know that phase 1 build would negotiate just fine. PSK, we got no issues there. What we're going to see on this phase 2, transform set or IPsec proposal, we're going to see something very similar to when we do later for the encryption domain for the ACL. But basically, what we're looking for here is the, again, no proposal chosen. In the IKEv2 message. And so a bunch of delete messages after that. So basically, again, this IKEv2 exchange type and no proposal chosen. And then if we go up before that, we have the SA init. No issues there. Get into SA init again. Shows the source and destination networks. And so no issues on the SA init. And then when it comes into the auth area, so I guess that's a pretty decent indication that, again, we're moving into the phase 2 area. So no proposal chosen there. A little bit difficult to be 100% sure, but I think those are the best messages that I've been able to pull out of the debug. And in the notes here, this one was a case where the CSR was an initiator. Next payload, delete, and that's right after in the IKEv2, no proposal chosen. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for the phase 2. Not the best, but it can be figured out from the messages here. So now we want to go back and fix phase 2. Back on the ASA. So now we got that IPsec proposal correct. Got everything cleared out here. So now we can move on to the last part, the encryption domain. And so a little bit different from what I did in the previous video, I realized that I could just add another line to the access list, the one that induces the error with the 172.16.21. And then once I have that other line, I can pull out the one existing and correct line, and then I don't need to go into the crypto map entry and re-reference it there. So go back over to the ASA, and then effectively we're just the interesting traffic ACL. We're putting in inducing an error there by having an incorrect network for the encryption domain, and so when traffic goes across, it's not going to build. And then we'll go back to the CSR, run debug again, and this will be the error version. Get some traffic going. And in the notes here, really it's just showing that there's an error, not too much in depth there. Good to know though. And then we'll move and we'll clear this, and then well, just move straight into the internal and see if we start getting messages. Cause I got traffic running. And for this one, it looks like started seeing IPsec. What we won't, the key here is we won't see any proposal messages. That's the key from this one versus the one that we just did before that was also phase 2 related. The key is, so what we should see in these messages on the router based on the notes, you know, get policy by peer, verify policy, get auth type, pre-shared key, verify auth, no worries there. So phase 1, totally good. Event okay, insert IKE. So this is all looking really good for phase 1 until we get this delete SA and we get this IPsec delete. And you'll notice that in the previous, when we were going through debug related to the breaking of the IPsec proposal or transform set, you know, had these messages about no proposal chosen, and it's very clear here that that's not in these messages, and we know that that phase 2 proposal is matching. But then once we get past that, we get into this IPsec delete, and that's because of our encryption domain not matching the traffic. And so if I go to event delete, IPsec delete, yeah. Yeah, so this section on the router here is exactly what I have in the notes. Pre-shared key, auth is done, so we know we're good on phase 1. And then insert IKE, and then delete SA. So we got really far. We got phase 1 was good, PSK was good, phase 2 transform set or proposal is good, and then we had a problem with the traffic going across not meeting the encryption domain, which is related to that interesting traffic ACL. And then for the first time, we start seeing messages that mention IPsec, and then it's in that messages to delete. So I think that's pretty good indication of what's going on there. So that is pretty much it for debug. A little bit different on the CSR, but definitely good to troubleshoot these kind of tunnels, especially with this kind of a basic setup. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.